You ever have one of those moments where reality just breaks? Like someone pulls a thread you didn't even know was loose, and suddenly the whole fabric of your life starts to unravel? Yeah, that was me. 3 weeks ago, sitting in the backyard with my grandpa on a quiet Sunday afternoon, nursing a warm can of Coke, and trying to pretend like everything in our family wasn't slowly rotting from the inside out. My name's Dylan. I'm 23. Grew up in a pretty average suburban family. Mom, dad, older brother, the usual. I was always the quiet one. The kid who didn't cause trouble, didn't ask for much, just kept my head down and did what was expected. Meanwhile, my brother, Lucas, 2 years older, was the golden child. He could do no wrong. Straight A's, even when I knew he cheated, team captain, charming smile that got him out of every mess he made. Everyone loved Lucas. Teachers, neighbors, my own parents, especially my mom. She doted on him like he was made of gold and acted like I was just the spare. It wasn't always like that, though. When we were little, we were close. Played video games together, built blanket forts, snuck extra cookies when mom wasn't looking. But somewhere along the line, maybe middle school, he started pulling away. Or maybe I just started noticing how different the way we were treated really was. Like how he got a brand new phone for his 13th birthday, and I got a secondhand one with a cracked screen 2 years later. Or how when he totaled his first car, Dad covered it up like it was some noble accident. But when I got a parking ticket, I got a 30-minute lecture about responsibility. I tried not to let it get to me. Tried being the bigger person. I figured life had a way of balancing itself out eventually. But man, life has a sick sense of humor. Back to that Sunday afternoon. We were at my grandparents' house, celebrating Grandpa's 75th birthday. They live about an hour away in a quiet little neighborhood where everyone waves at each other and still bakes pies for newcomers. Grandpa had just grilled up some burgers, and everyone was gathered outside, laughing, drinking, catching up. The sun was dipping low, casting everything in that warm golden light that makes you feel nostalgic even for moments you're still living in. I was sitting next to Grandpa on one of those creaky wooden benches he built himself years ago. We were watching my little cousins run around with sparklers, and for a moment, it felt peaceful, like maybe our family still had some good left in it. Then Grandpa turned to me with this soft smile and said, "So, how's the Mercedes running?" I blinked. "The what?" "The Mercedes," he repeated, nodding toward the driveway. "The one we gave you. Haven't seen it around lately." And just like that, my stomach dropped. Because I didn't own a Mercedes. Lucas did. He'd rolled up to the party in it, all smug and polished like he was auditioning for a car commercial. I remember because my dad made a whole scene about how sharp it looked and how Lucas always has the nicest taste. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Just assumed he'd bought it with that new job he kept bragging about. But now Grandpa was saying they gave it to me. I forced a laugh, confused. "Wait, you gave me that car?" Grandpa looked at me like I'd just asked if the sky was blue. "Of course. Last Christmas. We wanted you to have something reliable for work. Lucas came to pick it up for you. Said you were tied up with finals or something." And that's when everything clicked. Lucas. Lucas had told Grandpa I couldn't make it. Took the car. Never said a word to me. Acted like he'd bought it himself. And somehow, everyone had just gone along with it. My breath caught in my throat. I felt this weird rush of heat under my skin, like my body knew I was angry before my brain could process it. I stared at the driveway where the Mercedes gleamed in the last bit of sunlight, and then back at Grandpa. He was still watching me, but the smile was gone now. His brow furrowed just slightly, like a switch had flipped behind his eyes. "Dylan, you didn't know?" I shook my head slowly, not trusting myself to speak. Grandpa went quiet. Really quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl. His jaw clenched just slightly, and I could see the muscles in his neck tighten. He didn't say anything else, just looked out toward the rest of the family like he was replaying the last few months in his head. That's when I heard the laughter. Lucas, across the yard, laughing with my mom and dad, holding court like he always did. Wearing a watch I was pretty sure belonged to my dad, but looked new on his wrist. And something inside me snapped. I didn't make a scene, not yet. I just sat there, nodding at Grandpa like everything was fine, even though my thoughts were anything but. Because in that moment, I realized something I probably should have seen years ago. This wasn't the first time Lucas had stolen something from me. It was just the first time someone else had finally noticed. And I had a feeling this was only the beginning. I didn't sleep much that night. Even after I got back home and curled up in my tiny apartment, lights off, phone silenced, my mind was still spinning. That conversation with Grandpa kept replaying in my head on a loop, like a scratched CD stuck in the same 5-second track. We wanted you to have something reliable for work. Lucas came to pick it up for you. I kept picturing that moment, his face when he realized I had no idea about the car, the silence that followed, the look in his eyes, like something inside him cracked, just a little. I wish I could say it shocked me, but truthfully, it didn't. It just hurt, because it made one thing clear. My brother had been lying for years, and no one ever questioned it. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't blow up his phone or show up at his door demanding answers. That would have been too easy. And I knew Lucas. He was a master manipulator, always 5 steps ahead in every conversation, always armed with just enough charm and fake vulnerability to twist things in his favor. No, I needed to watch, to listen, to understand just how deep this rabbit hole went. So I started paying attention. The first thing I did was pull up my texts with Lucas from last Christmas. I scrolled all the way back, searching for any mention of a car. Nothing. In fact, he hadn't even replied to my Merry Christmas text until 2 days later. Said he was crazy busy and would call soon. That call never came. Then I looked at the photos he'd posted on Instagram from January. There it was. The same silver Mercedes. Caption: work hard, reward yourself. A sea of likes and comments followed, our moms included. Proud of you, sweetheart. You deserve it. I just sat there, staring at my screen in the dark, biting my lip hard enough to taste blood. Proud of you. You deserve it. That one stung more than I'd like to admit. It was always like that with Mom. Even growing up. If I got an A, Lucas got an amazing and a celebratory dinner. I got a pat on the back. If Lucas forgot to take out the trash, she'd do it for him. If I forgot, it was, why are you so irresponsible? I used to think I was just being sensitive, that maybe I was the forgettable one. But now, I wasn't so sure anymore. A week passed after Grandpa's party. I kept things quiet, played along, kept showing up to family dinners, smiling when I needed to, nodding along when Lucas went on one of his humble brag rants. Like last Sunday, when he went on and on about his new investment app and how he was considering flipping properties soon. Mom clapped like he'd just discovered gravity. Dad muttered something about how proud he was of Lucas's work ethic. I just stared at my plate, wondering how long they'd let him float on borrowed lies. Then came the incident. 2 Fridays ago. I was wrapping up a long shift, nothing glamorous, just a temp position at a logistics firm. Data entry. Soul-sucking stuff, but it paid the bills while I figured things out. I got home, took off my shoes, cracked open a soda, and then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Grandpa. Hey, Dylan. Got your thank you card. Really meant a lot. Hope you're enjoying the car. I blinked. What thank you card? I hadn't sent one. I texted back casually, heart thudding. Hey, actually, what card was that? Been meaning to send one, but haven't gotten to it yet, lol. He replied almost immediately. Lucas dropped one off last week. Said you wanted us to have something handwritten. Very thoughtful. I stared at the screen. My ears were ringing. Lucas had written a fake thank you card in my name for a car I never even received. I couldn't breathe for a second. I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. But something told me this wasn't a misunderstanding. Not this time. This was intentional, deliberate. He was fabricating stories to cover his tracks, again, and now he was writing in my voice. That was the moment it stopped being about the car. That was the moment I realized I didn't know my brother anymore. I sat on my couch, fists clenched, and just let the silence press in. The betrayal, the years of quiet favoritism, the overlooked moments, they all came flooding back. The Christmas when Lucas lost the money Grandma gave me and promised to get it back. I never saw it. The summer vacation where he swore Mom had only booked a hotel room for 3, not 4. I slept on the floor. The birthday he forgot to invite me to his party, my friends were there. It had been piling up like dust in the corners of my memory. And now it was choking me. I spent the whole weekend digging. Pulled out old group photos, scrolled through texts, called my cousin Jeremy, one of the few people in the family who didn't worship the ground Lucas walked on. Jeremy and I used to be close, but we drifted apart after college. I figured it was worth a shot. Hey, I said when he picked up. Got a weird question for you. Shoot. Do you remember the Mercedes? The one Lucas drives? Yeah. Grandpa said it was a gift to help him with work, right? I hesitated. He said, he gave it to me. There was a long pause on the other end. You're joking. I wish I was. Jeremy exhaled sharply. Man, I knew something was off. He showed up with that car and said he saved up for it. Grandpa even looked surprised at the time. I figured he just changed his mind. Nope. He never told me. Took the car, wrote a fake thank you card, and let them believe I was just grateful. Holy, he stopped himself. Dylan, this is messed up. Yeah, and it gets worse. I told him everything. The card, the fake story, the way no one questioned it. By the end of it, Jeremy sounded furious. I always knew Lucas was shady, he muttered. But this? He's got issues, man. He wasn't wrong. The worst part was, I didn't even want the car anymore. It wasn't about that. It was about being invisible. About watching someone rewrite your story in real time and getting applauded for it. Then, last Thursday, I got a call from my mom. Hey, sweetie. She chirped. So, Lucas is moving into a new condo downtown. We're thinking of having a little get-together this weekend. Nothing big, just family. You'll come, right? I paused. He's moving? Home. Said he got a great deal. It's really modern, lots of light. Oh, and guess what? He might be getting promoted soon. You know how hard he works. I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat. Right? Yeah, sure. I'll be there. She sighed happily. Good. I told him you'd be so proud of him. Proud. That word again. By the time Saturday rolled around, I had made up my mind. I was done being quiet. I wasn't going to scream or make a scene, but I was going to start peeling back the layers, slowly, carefully. Let people see the cracks for themselves. I showed up to the condo in plain jeans and a wrinkled tee. Everyone else was dressed like it was some sort of gala. Lucas greeted me at the door with a smirk. Dylan, you made it, bro. He clapped my shoulder like we were old pals. Glad you could make it. Parked that beater down the block. He added under his breath, laughing to himself. I stared at him. Nah. Took the bus. Still waiting on that car you picked up for me. He blinked, caught off guard for just a second, but recovered quickly. Right, he chuckled. That old thing? Yeah, man, I told you it wasn't your style. I didn't respond. Just stepped inside. The condo was nice. Too nice. Marble counters, smart lighting, floor-to-ceiling windows. It didn't scream entry-level salary. It screamed helped along the way. As I walked through the crowd, I overheard Lucas regaling our aunt with a story about how he saved up for the Mercedes by flipping old tech online. The lie rolled off his tongue so easily, I almost admired it. Almost. Then I saw Grandpa in the corner, quiet, sipping ginger ale. Watching Lucas with the same quiet calculation I'd seen in his eyes that day in the backyard. He looked at me. I nodded once. He nodded back. And that's when I knew. He remembered everything. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to expose Lucas in front of everyone. Not yet. The truth had already started seeping out. And soon, it wouldn't be just me who saw him clearly. It would be everyone. But I wasn't prepared for how fast that moment would come or how public it would be. That night at Lucas's condo was the last time I ever saw him as invincible. It wasn't dramatic. No explosive arguments or shattered glass. Just the slow, quiet sinking of a ship built on lies, one leak at a time. I left the party early, slipping out the side door while Lucas basked in his little spotlight, talking about market trends to people who barely understood what equity meant. No one noticed me leave. Or at least, no one said anything. Well, except Grandpa. He caught me just as I reached the elevator. Dylan, he said, soft and deliberate, like he'd been waiting for the right moment. I want to talk. We stood in the dim hallway for a long time. He didn't say much, but the words he did say stuck with me. I should have asked you directly, son. I'm sorry about the car. That's on me. I shrugged. It's not even about the car anymore. He nodded slowly. I know. I think I always knew. But I guess I didn't want to see it. I didn't cry, but I came close. There was something about being seen, really seen, for the first time in years that hit me right in the chest. I gave him a tight smile and told him not to worry, but something in his expression told me he was already planning something. Grandpa wasn't a man of many words, but when he did act, it was precise and impossible to ignore. Still, I didn't expect a rescue. I'd already learned that lesson the hard way. Over the next few weeks, life just kept going. Quietly, numbly. The thing about betrayal is, it doesn't hit you all at once. It drips. You feel it in the mornings when you wake up and check your phone, half expecting a message that never comes. You feel it when you look at your family and realize they never saw you. Not really. Not for who you were. Just for who you weren't. I hit a low point. Not gonna lie. Bills were stacking up. My contract job had ended, and the agency wasn't responding to my emails. I applied to everything. Admin work, night shifts, remote data entry. No bites. The silence after each resume submission started to feel personal. I spent most of my days in sweatpants, alternating between bouts of caffeine-fueled motivation and the kind of fatigue that makes you wonder if it's even worth getting up. Meanwhile, Lucas's life was a highlight reel. New photos every week. Brunch here. Golf there. I heard through the grapevine that Mom had helped him furnish the condo with money she pulled from her rainy day fund. Of course she did. And Dad? Well, he never said much. Just kept shaking his head and muttering about how proud he was every time Lucas showed up for Sunday dinner in a new button-down. I stopped going. I didn't even tell anyone. Just stopped showing up. And no one called to ask why. Not Mom. Not Lucas. Not even Dad. It hurt. More than I'd like to admit. But pain has a funny way of forcing clarity. Around that time, I started journaling. Nothing fancy. Just a cheap spiral notebook from a drugstore and a pen I stole from an old job. I'd write every morning. About what I was feeling, what I remembered, what I wanted to forget. At first, it was just to vent. But somewhere along the line, I started noticing patterns. Ideas. Dots that started to connect. See, I had always been good at writing. Even as a kid, I used to win little essay contests and write short stories in the back of my notebooks. But it had always felt frivolous. Not a real skill. Not something I could do anything with. Until one day, I was scrolling job boards at 2 a.m., eyes half glazed over, and saw a freelance listing, seeking content writers for startup blogs. $25 per article. Flexible hours. I almost skipped it, but something in me stirred. I applied, then applied to 5 more. I didn't hear back for days. Then a week. Then suddenly, 2 replies. One was from a tiny app review site. They asked me to write a test article about budgeting apps. I stayed up all night working on it, double-checking every sentence, making sure it didn't sound robotic. I hit send, and the next day they emailed back. We loved your tone. Can we offer you 5 articles a week? It wasn't much. $125 total. But it was something. And more importantly, it was mine. That tiny job led to another. Then another. By month 2, I was making $800 a month. Barely enough to cover rent and groceries, but more than I'd made since the logistics gig. And slowly, the fog started to lift. I started treating myself better. Cleaned my apartment. Cut my own hair. Bad idea. Started jogging. Nothing fancy. Just laps around the block while listening to lo-fi beats and pretending the world wasn't crumbling. I still didn't talk to my family, but I did see them. From a distance. Jeremy kept me updated. He'd call every few days, casually dropping in updates like, "Hey, guess who just asked Grandpa if he could co-sign a loan?" Or, "Mom says Lucas might be opening a luxury sneaker shop." Whatever that means. And every time, I bit my tongue. Because part of me wanted to scream, "Do you guys not see it yet?" But another part, the smarter part, knew it wasn't my job to convince anyone. That's the thing about building something on your own. The confidence that comes with it doesn't need to be shouted. It just is. 3 months into my freelance grind, something weird happened. A client, bigger one, from a startup blog about productivity, asked if I'd consider ghostwriting an ebook for them. It paid $2,000. I stared at the email for 10 full minutes before replying. I took the job. I worked on it for 2 straight weeks, drinking way too much coffee and sleeping on the couch. When I turned it in, the client replied within an hour. "Best thing we've ever published. We're sending a bonus." I sat there staring at that message, this stupid smile creeping onto my face, and for the first time in a long time, I felt proud. Of myself. No borrowed spotlight. No fake stories. Just me. Then came the letter. It arrived in a plain white envelope. No return address. Just my name, scrawled in neat cursive. Inside was a check. $10,000. And a note. "This was meant for you. We're making things right." Gee, I didn't have to guess who sent it. I called Grandpa the next day. "You didn't have to do that," I said quietly. "I know," he replied. "But I wanted to. And I should have done it a long time ago." We didn't talk long. We didn't need to. There was something in his voice, a kind of quiet resolve, that told me he wasn't just sending checks. He was making moves. That weekend, Jeremy invited me over for beers and cards. Just us. Halfway through the night, he leaned back in his chair and said, "By the way, you might want to keep your head down for a while." "Why?" He smirked. "Lucas's little house of cards is starting to wobble." Apparently, Grandpa had started asking questions. Big ones. About where Lucas got the money for the condo. About the Mercedes. About the investments. About why certain things didn't add up. And Lucas? He panicked. Tried to backpedal. Claimed Grandpa was misremembering things. Said I was trying to stir up drama. Even tried to guilt Grandpa by saying he was under too much stress. But it didn't work. Because this time, someone was finally listening. And that's when I realized I didn't need to fight. All I had to do was stand still long enough for the truth to catch up. And it was catching up fast. Still, I wasn't ready for what came next. Because just as I was finding my footing, just as the tide was starting to turn, Lucas made a move so selfish, so underhanded, it knocked the wind out of me. And this time, it was personal. It started with a phone call. Not from Lucas. Not from my mom or dad. This time, it was from my landlord. "Hey Dylan," he said, voice tight with awkward concern. "I hate to bug you, man, but I just wanted to confirm something real quick. You planning on moving out?" I was sitting at my desk, halfway through editing an article about minimalist budgeting tips. My first thought was, what? I hadn't even mentioned moving. I barely left my apartment except to jog or buy groceries. I pressed the phone harder to my ear. "No? What?" There was a pause, then a slow, cautious answer. "Okay, weird. I only asked 'cause someone dropped by this morning, said they were your brother, and asked about breaking your lease early. Said you were heading overseas for work and might have forgotten to tell me." I sat up so fast my chair creaked. My heart started pounding. Did he give a name? "Lucas. Tall guy. Said he was helping with logistics. Seemed legit, but I figured I should double-check with you first." I thanked him, reassured him I wasn't going anywhere, and hung up, my fingers suddenly ice cold. Lucas had actually tried to end my lease, and he didn't even bother to tell me. I stared at the wall for a full minute, stunned into silence. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or scream. He'd gone from stealing a car behind my back to now trying to erase my housing. What next? Faking my resume to ruin job leads? It felt like some kind of sick game. Like every time I started to stand on my own, Lucas would swoop in, claws out, and try to rip it all down. But this time, he made a mistake. He left fingerprints. And something in me clicked. I wasn't going to play defense anymore. He wanted to play games? Fine. But I was done playing by his rules. The next day, I started putting things in motion. Not loud moves. Quiet ones. Intentional. The first person I reached out to was Jeremy. We met at a coffee shop near his place, tucked into a corner booth with steaming mugs between us. I told him what Lucas had done with the lease, and for a second, Jeremy just blinked at me like he couldn't believe it. Then he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "All right," he said. "Screw this. What's the plan?" That's when I realized I wasn't alone in this. I never had been. Jeremy had watched Lucas manipulate people for years. He just didn't have a reason to speak up before. But now it was personal. Now it was war. We spent the next 2 hours drafting a timeline. Every shady thing Lucas had done that we could verify. Not gossip. Not speculation. Facts. The Mercedes, verified through Grandpa, complete with fake thank you card. The fake story about saving for the car. Instagram post with misleading caption. The condo, payments suspiciously aligned with the time mom loaned money from her retirement fund. The lease, interference, landlord confirmation. The supposed job promotions. We dug through LinkedIn and confirmed that his role hadn't changed since his initial hire. Each line on that list was another crack in his armor. But we weren't just collecting receipts. We were planning something bigger. Something that couldn't be twisted. The opportunity came 2 weeks later. It was Grandpa's idea, actually. He called me late one night, well past his usual bedtime. Said he'd been thinking. Said he was tired of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. And then he asked the question that changed everything. "How would you feel about coming to the family dinner next month? The one for Grandma's birthday?" I hesitated. "You know I stopped going." "I know," he said, "but I think it's time. People need to hear the truth. And I want you to be the one to tell it." My stomach twisted. "Grandpa, I don't think." He cut me off gently. "I'm not asking you to start a fight. I'm asking you to come prepared. I'll handle the rest." I didn't sleep much that night. But in the morning, I said yes. And from that moment on, the setup began. Over the next 3 weeks, Jeremy and I worked in the shadows. We gathered screenshots, email chains, voice notes. I even requested a bank statement from when Grandma had given each grandkid a $1,000 gift for graduation. My account showed the deposit, and then a withdrawal 2 hours later labeled family transfer. Turns out Lucas had asked to hold it for me since I didn't have a bank yet. That was years ago. The money was never returned. I'd forgotten about it entirely until now. But it was another piece of the puzzle. Meanwhile, Grandpa was doing his part. He started talking to relatives, subtly but firmly, planting seeds. Strange how Dylan never said anything about the Mercedes. Odd that Lucas is so vague about his income, don't you think? Makes you wonder who's really been telling the truth. He didn't accuse. He didn't push. He just let doubt do its work. And then, the final touch. 3 days before the dinner, I created a simple website. It was just one page. Plain white background. Black text. No names. No accusations. Just the timeline. The evidence. The screenshots. A quiet retelling of every truth Lucas had tried to bury. At the bottom, a note. You can believe what you want. But this is what happened. I sent the link to Grandpa. To Jeremy. To no one else. Yet somehow, by the time Saturday rolled around, I knew it had made its way through the family grapevine. Lucas probably thought he could control the narrative. But now, the narrative had receipts. That Saturday, I walked into my parents' house for the first time in months. The living room looked the same as it always had. Same beige couches. Same crooked family photos. Same faint smell of cinnamon and soap. But the air? The air was different. It was tight. Tense. Like everyone knew something was about to drop. They just didn't know when. I spotted Lucas by the fireplace, charming as ever, laughing with Aunt Maggie and swirling a glass of red wine like he'd been born for it. When he saw me, his smile twitched. Well, he said, stepping forward. Look who finally showed. Hey, I replied simply. He studied me, looking for cracks. You look different. Just working more. His eyes narrowed for half a second before the mask slid back into place. Good for you, man. I always knew you'd get there eventually. He clapped my shoulder and walked away, but I saw the twitch in his jaw. He knew, and he was scared. Dinner was uneventful. For a while, we all sat around the long table, passing dishes, pretending to be a normal family. My mom asked about my job in that polite, distant tone that made it clear she hadn't read a single article I'd written. Dad grunted a few responses between mouthfuls. Lucas dominated most of the conversation, as usual, dropping names and buzzwords like confetti. But then Grandpa stood up, glass in hand. He tapped it gently with a fork. Before dessert, he said, I'd like to say a few words. The room quieted. Grandma smiled warmly. Grandpa cleared his throat. We've had a lot of blessings in this family. I look around and I see kids who've grown into adults, made careers, started families. It's easy, sometimes, to assume that things are fine, that everyone's happy, that there's nothing to question. He paused. But sometimes, silence isn't peace. Sometimes, silence is just a mask for pain. And tonight, I think it's time we take that mask off. Lucas shifted in his seat. I watched him closely. His fingers tightened around his fork. I've made mistakes, Grandpa continued. We all have. But the biggest one was assuming fairness without checking the facts. And those facts, they've come to light. He turned and looked at me. Dylan, would you like to say something? And just like that, the table turned to me. All eyes. Waiting. I took a breath. Slow. Steady. Then I stood. And smiled. Sure, I said. I think it's time. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't bang the table. Didn't slam my fist or throw accusations across the mashed potatoes. I just stood there, hands relaxed by my side, and spoke like I was telling a story. Like I'd already won. And the only thing left was to let everyone finally hear what had really happened. Thanks, Grandpa. I began, scanning the table. I wasn't sure if I was going to come tonight. I've skipped the last few dinners for a reason. My mother gave a faint, uncomfortable smile, like I'd just brought up politics in a church. But then something changed. I continued. I realized staying silent only helped the people who already had the mic. So, I figured, why not take a turn? Lucas's face hadn't moved, but his hand was clenched so tightly around his wine glass, I thought it might crack. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a printed sheet of paper. Some of you probably saw this already, I said, holding it up. And if you haven't, don't worry. You will. Jeremy nodded faintly across the table. Grandpa sat still as stone, watching Lucas like a hawk. This is a timeline, I explained, of things that have happened in the last few years. Things some of you might not have noticed, because you were trusting what you were told. Things I didn't even know about, because someone else was writing the story. I turned to Lucas. Like how you told Grandpa I couldn't pick up the Mercedes he gave me, and then took it for yourself. My mother blinked. Lucas scoffed. Okay, wow. We're really doing this here. Or, I continued, how you wrote a thank you card in my name and gave it to him like I had sent it. Forged my handwriting. Didn't even tell me the car existed. Dad frowned. Wait, what? Lucas looked around, trying to laugh it off. I don't know what he's talking about. That car was meant for me. Dylan didn't even need it. No, Grandpa said, voice like gravel. It wasn't. Lucas opened his mouth. Closed it. I wasn't done. Or how you told my landlord I was moving out. Tried to break my lease behind my back. Told him I was leaving the country. What? Jeremy said aloud. Several heads snapped toward Lucas. I have the voicemail, I said. Want to hear it? Lucas looked like he'd swallowed a thumbtack. I was trying to help. No, I cut him off. You were trying to sabotage me. Just like you did when you kept Grandma's graduation money and told me you'd hold it for me. Just like you did when you lied about me not having a bank account. Or when you told Mom there wasn't enough room on that trip and I had to sleep on the floor. My voice wasn't angry, just steady, like I'd rehearsed this. Because I had. For years. You've been rewriting who I am to this family since we were teenagers, I said, locking eyes with him. And you got away with it because no one stopped to ask if it made sense. Because people believed what they wanted to believe. I turned to the table again, but I'm done letting him speak for me. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Grandpa stood up. I checked everything, he said. I talked to the landlord. I talked to Dylan's old bank. I checked the car records. It's all true. Every word. My mom looked like someone had dumped a bucket of cold water on her. Lucas, she stammered. Tell me this isn't true. Lucas stood up, flustered. Are you all seriously believing him? Over me? He's bitter. He's twisting things. He's just mad I've been successful, and he hasn't. That did it. Because Jeremy leaned forward. Successful, he said. Bro, your job title hasn't changed in 3 years. I called the company. You're still entry-level. Lucas's face turned red. I make more money freelancing part-time than you do bragging full-time, I added. And I didn't have to lie to anyone to get here. Aunt Maggie shook her head slowly. Why would you do all this, Lucas? You had so much already. I didn't, Lucas faltered. I didn't think he'd even care. That hit me. Because he wasn't sorry. Not for the lies. Not for the manipulation. He was just sorry he got caught. Grandpa stepped around the table and put a hand on my shoulder. I'm making a few changes, he said to the room. Effective immediately, Lucas will no longer be managing the family trust. That responsibility is being passed to Dylan. Lucas's mouth dropped open. What? You can't. I can, Grandpa said, voice firm. And I am. Your access is revoked. All accounts, all authority. You'll receive no more disbursements until further notice. You're punishing me because he made up some. I'm correcting a mistake, Grandpa interrupted. And if you can't see that, maybe it's time someone finally told you no. Mom finally spoke again, voice soft. Lucas, is this true? He didn't answer. That was his answer. Dad sat back in his chair, rubbing his forehead. I can't believe this. I could, because I'd been living it. Grandpa turned to me again. I should have seen this sooner. I'm sorry, Dylan. I gave a small nod. Thanks for believing me now. That's what matters. Lucas stormed out. Didn't wait for dessert. Didn't look back. The fallout came fast. Within a week, the rest of the family knew everything. Word got around. Screenshots circulated. Calls were made. Lucas tried to spin it, claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that I was playing the victim, but no one was buying it anymore. Not after the lease stunt. Not after the bank records. He went radio silent. His Instagram went dark. Rumor had it he moved in with a friend and was reevaluating things. That his job had quietly let him go after internal complaints about performance. That Mom and Dad had stopped returning his calls. I didn't rejoice in his downfall. Not really. But I won't lie. It felt good to finally breathe. To not be the shadow in the background anymore. To be seen. To be believed. A few weeks later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a key. And a note. She's in the garage. Where she always should have been. Gee. I took a cab out to Grandpa's place. There it was. The silver Mercedes. Cleaned. Serviced. Full tank of gas. I ran my hand along the hood, heart heavy and full at the same time. I didn't even care about the car anymore. Not really. But it meant something. It meant that, for once, the right person got what they deserved. And the wrong person didn't. I still freelance. Still write every morning. My little site has grown into something stable. Clients keep coming. The money's good. But more than that, it's mine. I don't go to every family dinner. But when I do, no one forgets I'm there. And Lucas? He doesn't come anymore. But that's not my story to tell. This one's mine. And for the first time in a long time. I'm proud of it. Because sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's just the truth, spoken calmly, with the receipts to back it up. And the silence that follows? That's the sound of everything falling into place.